Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of Sunday Recap with your boy, Wild Wayne Cartwright. And yes, we had a fabulous week number 4, and with everything that happened in week number 4, we're going to get right to it. But you guys know what you need to do. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure if you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. So, as we do every Sunday night, it's time to fire it up. And let's get to the montage. The Aggie Eagle Classic going down there in Greensboro. It was the North Carolina Central Eagles putting 60 points on the board for the second consecutive year. 767 total yards of offense, accented by Walker Harris, 22 of 29, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. Chris Mosley was the man of the hour. 11 rushes, 168, 3 TDs on the ground. Another 90 yards reception and 2 more receptions. 5 total touchdowns for Chris Mosley. On the day, the Eagles just completely dominated. It was 31-7 in a blink, and the Aggies really didn't have much to answer, being outrushed 368-54 in the whole process. Another dominant win in the series by the Eagles as they keep on rolling. Next week, the Eagles hit the road to take on the East Texas A&M Lions. North Carolina A&T, they get back in the CAA play by taking a long trip up to Maine. The Battle of the Real HU. After years of a lot of frustration, this one went the way of the Howard Bison, completely dominating the Hampton Pirates. 34-7, racing out to a 20-0 halftime lead. Travis Kearney, who had 2 yards rushing total last year as a freshman, busts out 16 rushes, 113, 2 touchdowns to help out Tyreek Starks, who also had a rushing touchdown. Oh, those Hampton Pirates. Oh, those Hampton Pirates. How they falling apart, man. Next week, Hampton, you're going back to CAA play, going to Elon. Howard, they go on the road to take on Richmond. We'll talk about this game a little bit more in a few minutes. And what was a close game at 21-7 at halftime down there in Tampa. A 35-0 blitz in the third quarter by the South Florida Bulls broke this game open to the tune of a 63-14 win. Byron Brown, 4 touchdowns in the air, 2 of them to Chaz Nimrod. The Bulldogs, they hung tough for a half, but in the end, it was just too much Bulls. South Carolina State next week, they stay in-state, hitting the road to take on Charleston Southern. In Baltimore, this game went the way of the Bears. The Morgan State Bears getting into the winner's circle for the first time this year. It wasn't pretty, but they held the Marauders to 111 total yards, forced 3 turnovers, 27-0 for the Bears into the winner's circle for the first time. Next week, they go to Indianapolis to take on Miles in the Circle City Classic. In Norfolk, another game that went back and forth. Oh, Norfolk, so many opportunities. We'll talk about this in a few. Sacred Heart Pioneers hang on 31-28. Jack Snyder, 79 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Mitchell Summers, 119 himself. They rushed for 295 as a team. Norfolk, Otto Coons was great in this one, 340 in the air. They broke out with 210 yards rushing. But you see 3 turnovers and 2 missed field goals, including a missed 42-yarder at the end by Evan Helfrich. In the end, it was the Sacred Heart Pioneers pulling it out and leaving town with a 3-point win. Norfolk next week will go to Staten Island to take on the Wagner Seahawks. As for Sacred Heart, they take on the team we're talking about next, the Delaware State Hornets, getting in the win column for the 3rd consecutive week. They came in leading FCS in total rushing yards per team. They added 299 more yards to the ledger. Caden Bennett with a rush TD. James Jones with a 90-yard rush touchdown as part of his 111, on the way to a 39-10 beating of the St. Francis Red Flash, avenging a loss from last year. In the process, the Red Flash committed 3 crucial turnovers. Caden Bennett was once again solid for these guys. D-Jack, gonna be a great time talking to him tomorrow on the MEAC coaching call. Next week, they hit the road and take on Sacred Heart, looking for a 4th straight win. And my boys, Alabama A&M, played mostly backups in this one. Eric Hanley filled in for an injured Quad Brown. 205 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. For 6 turnovers, 2 safeties, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions as part of a 49-7 win. Next week, hitting the road to take on Bethune-Cookman in the SWAC opener. And speaking of Bethune-Cookman, welcome to the winner's circle for the Wildcats. Cam Ransom, 172 in the air, 3 TDs, 2 of them to Malik Huggins. Part of his big day, 6 catches, 177. Kamani Robinson, 114 on the ground himself. How about the Wildcat defense? They frustrated Noah Bowden into 3 interceptions as part of 4 interceptions on the day. 35-9 Wildcats as they get ready for the Alabama A&M Bulldogs coming to town next week to start up SWAC play. And then down there in Prairie View, this one went back and forth late. Prairie View gets their 2nd win of the year, beating the Northwestern State Demons for the 2nd year in a row. They rushed for 352 total yards. Chase Bingman, 180 on the ground himself. Lamaje McDowell, 104 and 2 touchdowns. They had 500 total yards of offense, did the Prairie View Panthers. Abram Johnson, he was serviceable in this one. 156, 2 touchdowns in the air, 1 on the ground himself. 27-24 Prairie View gets back in the winner's circle, and next week they're hitting the State Fair Classic down there in Dallas to take on the last team we're talking about in the montage, the Grambling State Tigers. They scored the game's last 10 points. They outlast the East Texas A&M Lions 31-28. Zay T-Set, 179 in the air, a touchdown and a rushing TD. Clyde McClendon, the game-winning 1-yard run with 156 remaining. But they had to survive Eric Rodriguez leading them down the field and surviving a missed 52-yard field goal with 22 seconds remaining to get the victory. Grambling, 31-28. Your boy said it was going to be 31-28, and 31-28 is what you got. Oh, what a great game, and what a great day of action. So, that is the opening montage for this evening, and I want you to make sure that you hit the like button and make sure that you subscribe as we get ready to get into the action. Man, that was an awesome time, y'all. Awesome time. And I'm going to start with this game. Yeah, let's talk about this one. All right. So, Grambling getting a 3-1 on the year. Listen, it ain't been pretty. Grambling fans, how's your heart rate this evening? You had a tough one last week. You had a tough one, man. You had a tough one. Tough one last week, man. I like this. He said, wild Berman. Man, he said, my blood pressure increases every week. Man, whoo. I mean, 2 weeks in a row, man, you guys were pushed to the brink. All right, so this game, man. Let's really get into it here. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Mack. Hit the like button, everybody. Let's get into it. All right. So this game started real slow for Grambling, right? They punted their first 6 possessions. First 6 times they had the ball, 6 punts. Okay. Then Markel Linzer, he gets an interception that sets the Tigers up in the red zone. That helped them score the first touchdown. All right. So it took a play by the defense to get things going for the offense because they were just scuffling. And then when they went to halftime, they were down 14-7 at halftime. The bad punt snap that went over the head of the punter. Now, he tried to kick the ball out of the end zone, and as many of you know, you cannot do that anymore because that is called illegal touching. So they got the ball from the 1-yard line. It took them 4 plays to get in from the 1-yard line. ZT said scored on 4th and goal from the 1, and that got things tied up, okay? So then the Lions, they took the opening drive of the second half down for a touchdown. And then things just kind of went back and forth from there. But the key of this game was the game-winning 12-play, 77-yard drive led by ZT set. And the big play on that drive, for those that saw this game, ZT said it was 3rd and 10 from the 37-yard line, all right? It was about maybe 3 minutes remaining in the game at this point. It was 3rd and 10, and he evaded a sack. Really, when you're watching it on television, he really should have been sacked. But he, even with defenders hanging on him, he still managed to complete a 14-yard pass to keep Jones on 3rd and 10. And that extended the drive. Well, they would have probably went forward on 4th down anyway. But that extended the drive, and that helped them get down the field to allow themselves to be able to score the game-winning touchdown, right? But even with all that went on in this game, East Texas A&M was so you didn't really know who they were because East Texas A&M in their first 2 games, they played SMU and they also played Florida State, okay? 2 money games on the road, okay? They competed well against SMU, very well against SMU. But the game against Florida State, it was 77-3. So you really didn't know what East Texas A&M really had in this thing. Now, these 2 teams, they played last year. It was a close one. It went to overtime last year. So this game, I expected it to be close because of the fact that I just felt like East Texas A&M, they had a few athletes. And they did. You saw their receiving core. They were giving Grambling secondary some fits there. One thing Grambling's defense, they did do very well in this game. They stopped the run. So if there's one thing you can really hang your hat at as you get ready to move forward, if you're a Grambling fan, is how well they performed against the run. Okay, East Texas A&M didn't even reach 100 yards rushing in this game. All right, they did most of their damage in the air. Eric Rodriguez, he was giving you guys a lot. His ability to extend plays, he was moving in the pocket very, very well. So if you're a North Carolina Central fan that's watching this show, this is your opponent next week down there in Commerce. That guy, he was slippery, very slippery. Like you said, yeah, Rodriguez, he was slippery. Like every time Bryce Cage, Washington, they were getting to this guy. And somehow, some way, he would wiggle his way around and find a way to extend plays with his legs and make some completions. So credit to Grambling, once again, when they got down late in the game, not panicking. When you needed to make plays, ZT said for the second week in a row, when you had to have a drive, he gave it to you in getting it done. He was effective when he needed to on the late parts of the game with just completing some passes and also using his legs. Now, 14-26 is not necessarily, something that you can just say, we're going to jump up and down and hoot and holler about. But it's just about how it was opportunistic and how we took advantage of the opportunities when you really needed to have it. So if you're a Grambling State fan, it gives you a lot of encouragement to bounce back and beat an FCS team versus the performance you had last week against Kentucky State. Because as you might imagine, that performance having to go to overtime against Kentucky State, that really didn't make you feel good. But this should make you feel good, and this should encourage you to go into next week to get ready to go play the Prairie View Panthers. Now, speaking of Prairie View, as I go back one, Prairie View, this was another game where I just kept watching, and I was just expecting Prairie View. I was like, okay, it's at some point Prairie View's going to hit the gas and pull off on these guys. Now, it took a long while because Northwestern State, if you didn't see them play Alcorn in the opener, I thought coming in, perhaps maybe Alcorn, maybe that was a fluke with Northwestern State. But actually, these guys, they actually got some skills. They got a couple players. Their quarterback, Abram Johnson, he's pretty solid, man. He's pretty solid. 12 of 19. He was, he didn't really throw the ball too much, but he extended again, just like Rodriguez of East Texas A&M. He was another quarterback who was extending plays, running around, making the defense, having to chase them, getting out of rush lanes, just different things that Northwestern State was able to do to stay in this game. Now, the thing, if you're a Prairie View A&M fan, the thing that's got to really concern you is the fact that you outgained them 500 to 320. You had 500 yards of total offense. Now, this was looking a whole lot similar to the way it was in the opener against Texas Southern. You outgained Texas Southern by a mile in that game, and you outgained Northwestern State by 180 yards in this game. But yet it came down to an onside kick attempt. So, but if you look at it though, you gotta be encouraged though, because these boys, they rushed for 352 yards. Okay. Now Prairie View, they were struggling running the ball coming into this thing. Okay. The last two games, that is. First game, they did everything on offense really well in the first game, except they committed a ton of penalties and they turned the ball over in inopportune times. And they turned the ball over in this game also. They had a fumble, they had an interception in this game, right? But the rushing game took charge and was able to make it happen. Chase Bingman, man, this guy, that little guy, that dude is tough, right? You look at him, I mean, he's a little short guy, but he takes a pounding and he's able to just find some holes. And also he's been able to get used in the passing game. Lamaje McDowell, he had been banged up and he looked like he was the guy from last year in this game. I mean, gaining 104 yards on just 14 rushes and getting 2 touchdowns. That was really, really good for these guys. If you're Prairie View, what you take away from this game, you say, hey, look, we've yet to play our best game, complete 4 quarters yet. Like, we've yet to play a clean game, but yet we've come out of this thing 2-2, winning the 2 games that we probably, you probably expected to be 3-1. Let's just keep it real, because the UT Rio Grande game, you probably didn't see that as a loss. But if you think about it, you come out of this thing 2-2, you're going into SWAC play with a 1-0 SWAC record. All your goals are in front of them, right? You're in front of you. So if you're Tremaine Jackson and group, some of the things you got to get cleaned up. You got to get more consistency in your pass game, because I can tell you like this, you're not going to be able to rush for 352 yards every week without having a passing game. And so if you're going to be able to get in this thing, and you're going to be able to throw the ball and be able to run like this, then you got that balance. It's going to make you a little bit more dangerous. But just take away from this game, hey, we got the win. Now you move on to a big one next week down there in Dallas. And oh, what a game it will be. And I will talk about that game on Wednesday in its entirety. All right. So I will stay in the SWAC. And let's talk about Bethune-Cookman, man. Now, I need to say a few things about Bethune-Cookman for those that may not have watched this game. It was on the Griot. Sometimes with the Griot, you got to go and dig and search and find the Griot. I was able to get it on Sling TV. But let me just say this about this game, man. Bethune-Cookman, the 3 games that they lost to start the season, they played 2 PWIs. They played FIU, they played Miami, and you saw Miami, you see how they playing. And then they also played South Carolina State, who's been playing really, really well. So those were 3 pretty tough games for these guys to start the year. Yesterday, you saw a glimpse of what they could be, right? Defensively, they took the ball away 4 times. They were able to get pressure on Noah Biden. Like, they forced him into a whole lot of bad decisions. Noah Biden, I hate to say this, but this guy looked like the Southern and parts of the Grambling version of what made you just like cover your eyes. Just going around and forcing throws and throwing it up for grabs. And even though he had 3 interceptions, he literally could have thrown another 4 others. He could have thrown at least 7 picks in this game because there were at least 4 other picks that were in the hands of a Bethune-Cookman defender that actually wasn't caught. So, Cam Ransom, 3 more touchdowns in the air. He showed you last week in the 4th quarter what he's capable of. He showed you a couple of games last year what he's capable of. Malik Huggins was ridiculous in this game. 6 receptions, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, right? So in Kamani Robinson, he also had 114. So offensively, they got some pieces to work with. Now, what am I saying about Bethune-Cookman? I'm not trying to sit here and say that they're just getting ready to go and become some world beaters. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that maybe they're not as bad as most of America and most of HBCU fandom tried to say they were, right? Because Cam Ransom, he can do a lot of things, man. He can run and he can extend plays. And you can see he can throw the deep ball. So, hey, Raymond Woody, for all the pressure and everything that's on him, he's going to have a chance to coach his way out of this thing. Starting next week when my boys come to Daytona. But for one game, great job for Bethune-Cookman to get in the winner's circle. This game was never this close. It could have been a lot worse than this. Edward Waters made so many mistakes. You saw they had 13 penalties. 13 penalties in addition to the 4 interceptions that were thrown. And so they beat it. They beat a hot Edward Waters team, and they beat their former head coach in the process, Brian Jenkins Jr. So good job for Bethune-Cookman getting the win there. All right. Now, I'm going to move over. And unfortunately, I got to do this to my guys down there in Norfolk. All right. This game right here was all about Norfolk State's inability to just take advantage of opportunities. These guys, you saw, they outgained Sacred Heart 550 to 390. Okay, now, giving up 390 yards is never good. But to get 550 yards of total offense and not win the game is something that will this is going to stick with you, man. This one's going to piss you off for a full 7 days. Because if you gain 550 yards, you're supposed to win games, man. Sorry. I have to say it. You're supposed to win games when you gain that many yards. Otto Coons, and just like what my man Doc, what's up, Doc? He said Otto Coons is your QB. Look at that. 27 of 41, 340 yards, right? You don't need to ask any more questions about who's your quarterback. This is your guy. That's your guy. And then I had always talked about how maligned their rush offense was. They rushed for 210 yards yesterday. Okay, Xavion Evans had 60 and 2 touchdowns, and Kevon King, he had a pretty lengthy touchdown run himself. Okay, so they broke out. They did all the things that they needed to do on offense, except take care of the ball. They had 3 turnovers. And what was so crazy about the 3 turnovers? Sacred Heart scored 2 touchdowns on 2 of the 3 turnovers that they got. So if you don't turn the ball over, you easily win this game. But also something else that needs to give them some thought. Allowing 295 yards rushing. Defensively, we knew that Norfolk had some issues, right? We also knew that they had some issues on offense. But yesterday, this was a day where the offense clicked. And you see Sacred Heart, they're not a sorry team. They're a pretty decent team. They're an independent now. They don't play in a league, but they are a fellow FCS opponent. And this would qualify as a quality opponent. You know, they did some things, but this was a game that was winnable. And then also those 2 missed field goals. Oh my gosh. Helfrich missed a very short one. It was like a 22-yarder in the first half. And then when they got the ball late in the game, down 3, Otto Coons leads them down the field. Leads them down the field with no timeouts and sets them up for a 42-yarder that they miss at the gun that would have sent the game to overtime. So Norfolk State, moving forward, if you're going to play offense like this will win you some games. But you got to shore up some things on that defense, and you got to be able to take care of the ball. Next week, you go to Wagner. That's a chance for you guys to get a win. Now, I know Wagner, they're 0-4, and I'll talk about it Wednesday. They're 0-4, but Wagner, they played some PWIs, some FBS teams in their schedule. So, but it's still a game that they should be able to compete in and win. So ahead of MEAC play, if you're Norfolk, you better start cleaning some stuff up on defense, because if you're going to play offense like this, you'll be in some games. Okay. You'll be in some games. Now we'll step back here and we'll go to the battle of the real HU. This game right here, man. Oh yeah. He said, "What's up, MEAC Mike?" He said, "Yeah, it was the quintessential definition of self-inflicted wounds, all self-inflicted." This game right here. All right, I can take this one. I thought that Hampton was going to win a close one. Now, after the opening game of the season, a lot of people really thought, what's going on? Hey, a lot of people after the opening game, they thought that perhaps, man, this Hampton team might be better than we thought. And then after they lost to Jackson State, they turned around and played a very uninspired game that they needed to win in the final minute against Elizabeth City State. And then last week, you saw they had that game won through 58 and a half minutes at North Carolina A&T and let that get away. But now, after seeing this game, Hampton, at this point, I hate to say it, is they are who they are now. Their quarterbacks, it didn't matter who they played back there. It didn't matter if it was Freeman. It didn't matter if it was the other guy. Neither one of them could get anything going with their passing game. You saw they only threw for 71 yards. That's it. Now, Travis Kearney, unbelievably, all right, so Eden James, if you didn't see this game, Eden James, who's their bell cow at running back, he was injured. He did not play. Travis Kearney gained only 2 yards, 2 total yards as a freshman. He's a sophomore out of Florida. 2 yards last year. He comes in this game and lights it up. 16 rushes, 113, 2 touchdowns. Lit it up. Now, this game, what was so crazy is Hampton, right? They punted 7 of their first 9 possessions. 7 of their first 9 possessions. And the 2 possessions that they didn't punt, one was an interception, and the other one was a halftime. And then they had a golden opportunity early on to establish some momentum where Howard threw him an interception right there in the red zone. Right? Or sorry, Howard fumbled in their own end, and they got the ball in their red zone. And they turned around and they threw an interception. And they trailed 20-0 at half. And then they came out in the first possession of the second half, took the ball all the way down the field. And you're thinking like, okay, they're going to get into this game and get stopped on downs. It was never to be seen again anywhere close in this game. 34-7 in a game that really wasn't even this close. Howard completely dominated this game. And they exercised a whole lot of frustration from some years past. Because this was the first time that they had won in 6 tries. Larry Scott said, we've done a lot here at Howard. We've won the MEAC. They did. We went to the Celebration Bowl. They did. But one thing that we had not done was beat Hampton. And yesterday, they finally got over that Hampton Mountain. And now, if you're Hampton, this thing could be a very, very long year. Man, because if you're going to play like this could be a long year. For Howard, they're 3-1. They're in good position. Now, they still have a few more games that they're going to play in non-conference. And before they get there out of the non-conference, and here's their schedule. They're going to go play Richmond. They're going to play Sacred Heart. We just talked about Sacred Heart. They're going to play Tennessee State, which is Tennessee State's homecoming. And then they get the last 5. So if you're Howard, they're playing good defense. They're getting some timely contributions on offense. It ain't always pretty, but you know what? These boys are 3-1. And I got to say, they're pretty decent taking advantage of the opportunities that are afforded to them. But yeah, if you're Hampton, speaking of them, looking at this schedule, at Elon, yeah. Norfolk State coming to your house. If Norfolk State plays offense the way I just showed you, yeah. Maybe Campbell. Monmouth, no. Those boys just put 51 yesterday on a ranked Villanova. Definitely ain't Villanova. Maine, So this could be a long year for these boys. Because after that first game, we were like, hey, look at Hampton. Now, Anyway, Aggie Eagle Classic. This game right here was so lopsided. I probably was a little too generous in my prediction for this week. I didn't see any way that North Carolina A&T was going to be able to compete in this game. And as you can tell by the looks of the score, they did not. This game was over quickly. Walker Harris, for the second week in a row, threw for well over 350 yards. Threw for 3 touchdowns. So definitely getting his thing in order. Chris Mosley was ridiculous. As I said in the montage, 168 rushing, 3 touchdowns, 90 yards receiving, another 2 touchdowns. There was no answer, 0 answer for Chris Mosley. Arthur Rodgers, 149 rushing himself, 767 of total offense. 767. Whoo, man. And Amanda, yeah, this was your team in full effect. Said it was lit in that stadium. Yeah, I bet. They smoked them boys. Smoked them like they stole it. For North Carolina A&T, it's not all doom and gloom. Kevin White, he came back after injury from a year. He was pretty decent in this game. He's somebody that you can possibly hang your hat on moving forward. But these guys, man, North Carolina Central, these guys are showing that this is the team that I picked to win the MEAC preseason. They are showing you that they have everything that you need, the parts to be able to win this thing. Walker Harris with his ability to spread that ball around the receivers. Chris Mosley running the ball on the ground. And if you get Arthur Rodgers chipping in like this, look out, right? So these guys, they're starting to get their thing in order. But next week, they're going to go down there and play East Texas A&M. That's going to be an interesting one. Looking forward to see that. Expect the scoreboard to kind of get lit up a little bit down there in Commerce. North Carolina A&T, it's not all bad for you guys. You guys got to win. You won against Hampton. I think many of their fans, though, are a little too overconfident. I do got to say that. Because let's not get it twisted. You guys needed to get a little bit of assistance from Hampton last week. But nevertheless, you've got a game in hand. And next week you go take on a winless Maine team that maybe we'll see. But as Amanda said, Coach Oliver had to slow the game down. Score could have been much worse. Yeah, it could have been much, much, much worse. But 62-20 was the victory in this one. And speaking of North Carolina A&T, or North Carolina Central, I should say, this is what they've got coming ahead. So, they got the game down there in Commerce, and then they get a much needed bye week. So they will have played 6 straight games, and then they get a bye week before they play their last non-conference game down there at FAMU. Okay. And then you see the gauntlet will begin because they're going to take on Delaware State, who will be the last team I talk about right here. These boys continuing to get it done on the ground. They came into the game leading FCS in total rushing yard average per game. Definitely didn't do anything to come against that average by rushing for 299 yards yesterday up there in Pennsylvania against St. Francis. Okay. They forced 3 turnovers. They look good. James Jones, Marquise Gillis, these guys, Caden Bennett, these guys, they can run that football. And yesterday, they started to show a little bit of what they can be on defense, taking away the ball and getting a couple of interceptions. So what's important for Delaware State moving forward? They just need to just keep gaining confidence. Keep gaining confidence because you got this schedule that looks like this. Next week, you're going to Sacred Heart. That's a winnable game for you guys. Now, that Monmouth game, we'll see. If they get that Monmouth game on the road, that would be considered to be an upset. Man, now you're starting to say, wow, these boys might be able to get something done for real in that MEAC. I like them. I like what Coach Jackson does. You guys have heard me say it many times before. Coach Jackson looks the part of a head coach, looks very confident, and he's making moves with his roster, and he's getting the most out of that roster. And that coaching staff, they got these players believing in the system and the structure. So they got 3 more games before they hit that MEAC opener at North Carolina Central. And oh, what a great path it'll be. But yeah, these boys playing some good ball, real good ball. All right. So now I see everybody's kind of fired up in the chat. So, one thing I'm going to do is, as I'm talking to you here in the chat, make sure you hit the like button. And if you're watching me for the very first time or you have not subscribed to me, make sure you subscribe, man, because this thing is rolling. All right. So now let's get into some SWAC stuff. Okay. Next week, we get ready to start this thing called SWAC play. Okay. I'll start with my team first. All right. So A&M, we're going down to Bethune-Cookman. Most important thing about this game is just take it one game, one day at a time. That's it. Take one day at a time. One day at a time. Okay. So this was a good day. It's funny what he says here. He said, how about them Browns? Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, let me take this down for a second. Y'all see me in the background, the Browns. Yeah, I'm from Cleveland. Hey, anytime my A&M Bulldogs and the Browns can win in the same weekend, it don't happen too often, but I take them, right? So, here we go. Back to this, guys. A&M, just take it one game at a time. 3-1, feeling good about yourselves. Take care of business at Bethune-Cookman, and then I'll have a plenty of good conversation the week of 10-4 when we go down and play Jackson State in Mobile. Like he said, 1-0 mentality every week. That's all it takes. Because the thing for us, when you had not been winning the previous 3 years, now is not the time to start talking about any other game other than the next one on your schedule. I know a lot of people want to talk about, the Magic City Classic this year. You can miss me with that. I don't want to talk. If you want to ask me anything about Magic City Classic, I ain't got no words for you. Thing for me is Bethune-Cookman's the next one on your schedule. And like MEAC Mike said, I am a full believer of what you said. This is exactly what I said. It's going to be closer than what people think, because what you saw from Bethune-Cookman yesterday, those guys got some guys. They got some talent. And so we need to be focused when we go down there. Okay. Now, Jackson State. And I see people doing a whole lot of talking here in the chat. And, it's my usuals. It's my usuals. My usuals. He said, deep breath, go Pirates. It's the usuals. I hear everybody in here, y'all talking. And y'all keep on talking. Do what you want to do in the chat, man. It's all live. But just make sure you hit the like button and make sure you subscribe. Here you go now. Coming off this bye week. Going down to Southern. The only questions that have been about Jackson State has just been about offense. That's it. And really just passing offense. That's it. Passing offense. Yeah. Hit the like button, please. Appreciate that. He say it's going to be a tough cat fight in Mumford. Oh my gosh, man. This is hilarious. Yeah, it's going to be tough, man, when you get down there. Yeah, appreciate that, man. Subscribe. But really what it's about, man, is what did these guys do during the bye week to shore up their passing offense? That's really the one question. Rush offense? Man, these boys are able to run the ball. But the question will be, when you get down there, what will Southern have? What are they going to have? He said, it's not going to be that tough. The only thing I'm saying was tough, Mr. Avis Heath, is you don't know what Southern's going to be. Because at this point, I'm going to say it like this. Even though Southern, and I'll click over to them. I'll switch over to them since we talking about Southern. Even though they can win, they can lose this game against Jackson State. It's not the end-all, be-all for their SWAC West hopes. Because quite conceivably, they could win the remainder of their games and still win the West. The part about it is you don't know what Southern's going to be. And here's the thing I'm just going to say. You do know. You don't. You know why? Because you got somebody different calling the plays. You also don't know who's playing quarterback. You think Jalen Woods will be back. You don't know. Is it Strother? Did Cam McCoy get his turnover issues together? You don't know. Also, defensively, are these guys going to be different? That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to say, I know you guys as fans think that Southern's going to be who they are, but until I see it show up next Saturday night, we're not going to know. We can just guess. We can assume. Now, I will say this for those of you out here that's arguing this point. We can all agree that if Southern shows up the sum or some part of what they were these first 4 games, then Jackson State should be able to beat them pretty good. But also, I'll make this one other point, and I'll say this too when I get to my show on Wednesday night, is the fact that the last couple times that this series has been played down there in Jackson, it's been a closer game. The ones that I'm talking about down there in Baton Rouge, I should say. In Baton Rouge, it's been closer. The games that have been down there in Jackson, those have been no contest. Those have been just one-sided efforts. But the last couple times down there in Baton Rouge, it's been some 4-quarter games. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so now that I talked about Southern, now I'll go right here, FAMU. FAMU, just as I said about A&M with a 1-game schedule, this is really a 1-game schedule for you. This game against Alabama State, man. I know that sometimes we tend to leap too far ahead, but I'm not going to leap too far ahead right here. This is a crucial game for their psyche and a crucial game for just the overall outlook of the Colesy tenure. Yeah, that's right. I said the Colesy tenure. You got to find a way to get this one done if you're FAMU going down there and playing at home after a bye week. But, playing these boys from Alabama State, it's been pretty difficult. Because these boys right here, they've got a different look on offense. And now you can say what you want about that game against Miles. But there's some things that you've seen from this Alabama State team that's a little bit different from what you've seen in the recent past of their offense. Andrew Body, people say that, oh, if you stop him running, he's been able to throw the ball now. So if I go back up against right here, this game next week, if you're FAMU, you could say, well, it's the next game on the schedule, but no, it's an important game. Because if you lose this game, given the fact that your one win was against Albany State, if you lose this game and the fact that you had 2 weeks to prepare for it, psychologically, you could be gone. So that's why it's important for next week. And then, like I said, Alabama State, one at a time, guys. One at a time, too. All right. So, everybody, it's real hot and heavy here in the comments. So here's what Zoe said. He said they're averaging 14 points a game. JSU is giving up an average of 17 points a game. JSU by 21 in BR. Yeah, he says, I believe Southern will perform well in the second half, but Jackson State's depth and talent will shine through in the second half. Interesting. It says Bama State might get tripped up in Bragg. Interesting. We'll see how that goes. But, next week is next week, Next week is next week. So let me move and advance on forward, and I'll go to my next segment, which is my weekly ride tokens. Okay? These are my awards for week number 4. I decided this week to go. I really didn't see a special teams ace this week. So I just went with 3 offensive and 1 defensive, right? So Chris Mosley, that goes without saying, man. I mean, you got 5 total touchdowns, 3 rushing, 2 receiving, and you got 168 yards on the ground. Goes without saying. Chris Mosley, ride token offensive number 1. Travis Kearney gets number 2 of my offensive ride token. This guy, if you just joined me, Travis Kearney had 2 yards rushing last year as a true freshman. 2. He filled in for Eden James, who was injured, and came in and rushed for 113 yards and got 2 touchdowns. Okay? So, he gets the second one. My third offensive token this week goes to Malik Huggins of Bethune-Cookman. 6 catches, 177, 2 touchdowns. Great job to Malik Huggins. And then on defense, Jaquavion Smith of Howard. Now, there were a host of guys in HBCU on the FCS level yesterday that did well defensively. But this guy himself had 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. And so he gets the defensive ride token for the week. So these are my ride tokens for week number 4. And then, next week, as we get into the schedule for next week, and for those that are watching, make sure you hit the like button. And those that are watching for the first time, make sure you subscribe. All right. Week number 5 next week. And oh, what a week number 5 we got, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the opening weekend of SWAC play, and it's been talked about for months on months, and we are finally here. On SWAC TV in the afternoon, you've got A&M, Alabama A&M, that is, going to face Bethune-Cookman. On the Griot, it's the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis, where you've got Alcorn taking on UAPB. Both teams coming off a bye week. The first game with Alabama A&M and Bethune-Cookman, both teams coming off victories yesterday over SIAC opponents. So Southern Heritage Classic going down in Memphis on the Griot, and that will be Alcorn against UAPB this year. Then you've got on SWAC TV, you've got a late afternoon affair down there in Itabena. Both teams coming off a bye week. Both teams sitting at 0-3. You've got Texas Southern going to Itta to take on Mississippi Valley State. This is the first time those two teams have played since 2019. It's been a minute for those two, but they get together next week. Somebody's going to get their first win of the year in that one. The HBCU Go game of the week. This one's a little bit of an earlier one for you guys. This one will be 3 p.m. Eastern down there in Tallahassee. So if you're going down there to Tallahassee, make sure you hydrate, because this is an afternoon affair. Alabama State going down to take on FAMU in a big time opener there in the SWAC East. Huge game. Looking forward to talking about that one in earnest on Wednesday night. Then you've got going down on SWAC TV Saturday night down there, State Fair Classic. This one went 5 overtimes last year. Prairie View is going to take on Grambling. Both teams coming in off of a win yesterday. All right, so looking forward to seeing those two teams tangle one more time down there in the Cotton Bowl. And then on the Bluff, ESPN Plus on Saturday night, which is considered to be the main event. You've got the Jackson State Tigers coming off a bye week, looking for their 7th consecutive win over the Southern Jaguars. Taking them on down there in 8W Mumford Stadium, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. ESPN Plus is where you'll see that game in the SWAC. Then you've got switching over to the MEAC next week. You've got the Howard Bison coming off a big win in the Battle of the Real HU yesterday. They go down and they play the Richmond Spiders. That'll be on ESPN Plus. Also on ESPN Plus, South Carolina State Bulldogs. They stay in state. They go down to Charleston to take on the Charleston Southern Buccaneers out of Big South OVC. Then an interesting one down there in Commerce, Texas. You just saw them yesterday. They fell in a close one to Grambling. You got the North Carolina Central Eagles going down to Texas, man, to take on East Texas A&M Lions. And then you've got Delaware State looking for their 4th straight win on the road there at Sacred Heart. And then the Circle City Classic this year. Morgan State comes in and they're going to take on another SIAC opponent. They played 1-1 yesterday. They're going to take on the Miles Golden Bears. And then on NEC front row, you've got Norfolk State trying to get in the winners column, hitting Staten Island to take on the Wagner Seahawks. Big South OVC play opens for both Tennessee Tech and Tennessee State. A lot of Tennessees. Tennessee Tech goes on the road to face Tennessee State. This is the opener in the Big South OVC for both teams. Both teams had a bye week last week. Tennessee Tech, they are really, really good, man. Ranked team in the FCS. That'll be on ESPN Plus. And then in the CAA, both of these games will be on Flow College Sports. You got Hampton hitting the road to take on Elon, and then you have North Carolina A&T making an interesting trip up to the state of Maine to take on the winless 0-4 Black Bears. So that is the schedule for week number 5. I'll switch back over here to the SWAC because, yes, Jackson State is also ranked as well. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I will tell you guys that this slate right here, man, listen, you can't lose the SWAC race in the first week. But you definitely can put yourself in a big time hole, especially if you are in the SWAC East this year. Because I'll tell you, that SWAC East race, man, it's gonna be imperative that you don't lose. That when you get your shot against Jackson State, you better not miss. But for those that are watching, I'll say what I said on Wednesday night here, switching about Jackson State. And I'll say this on record again so people hear me. If you didn't hear me Wednesday, I'll say it right now. You see the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. If Jackson State wins all 5 of those games, you can forget about it and make your plans to be in the vet on December 6th. Just like that. Just like that. No, I'm not sitting here and I'm not trying to say that it's definitely going to happen. I'm just telling you that if these boys win their next 5 games, forget about it. Because you look at who they will have beaten inside of those 5 games. They will have beaten all of their chief competitors in the East, all 3 of them. And that'll put it to rest because there'll be a huge favorite against Mississippi Valley. There'll be a huge favorite over Bethune-Cookman. And if they're 7-0 going into that game against Alcorn, it'll already be wrapped up. So I can tell you right now, if you're a West team and your team is in the West race, if these guys win their next 5 games, get ready to come to Jackson December 6th. Point blank. And everybody says it's not going to happen. Hey, we will see. These games will play themselves out. They will play themselves out. But as I said before, the big problems that you can always have is turning the ball over. Okay, Zoe, you said disagree. The next 3 games will determine them? Nah, well, maybe, could be. You could be right. But I'm just saying standing wise here, Zoe. If you win the next 5, I'm just saying standing wise. I mean, regardless, if you win those next 3, you win those next 3, you probably be in there. But just as safe to say, if you win the next 5, then that's over. That's really over. But that's why they play the games, man. You still got to play the games. You still got to finish the thing. You still got to finish this. You still got to do what you're supposed to do. Everybody, hit the like button. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Yeah, Amanda said, do not sleep on any team. Any team. So I will continue here, slips going on forward. I know I talked a little bit about the East. Now I'll talk a little bit about the West as we get ready to close out here. This team right here, Alcorn State Braves, here in the West. I want to tell you something about here, man. This team right here in the West. To me, I think these guys, they just need to get this win against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and I think it'll get them started. Because with Prairie View coming to their place next week, you know, they've got a pretty favorable schedule here because they face all of their guys, all of their tough teams that are in the West. Most of them all come to Alcorn. They come to Lorman on the reservation there, with the exception of the Texas Southern game and the neutral game that you play. But the thing you have to understand here for Alcorn, these guys, they still have some players, man. So if they get one win against Pine Bluff this week, this can get these guys potentially started. And then you got to feel good about yourselves when you start playing Prairie View at home next week, especially when Prairie View comes off of the game that you look right there. Now we're talking about Grambling. That game against Prairie View next week in Dallas. If you're Grambling, now here's where we need to start to see who really Grambling really is going to be. We saw glimpses of who they were last night. You know, they showed you that they have the ability to run the ball and they have the ability to make plays on defense. But where it's at, man, these guys got to be able to be more consistent with their offensive setup. So these guys, they'll have a chance to prove who they really are. And it starts this week in Dallas. You look at their schedule moving forward. You know, they've got some road games. They've got some neutral games. So we'll see. They had 2 heart stoppers the last 2 weeks. But these guys, they got to start getting started a lot earlier. This week, they punted on the first 6 possessions. You got to get started earlier if you're Grambling. And then these guys right here, Prairie View. Yesterday, they tuned it up to 340 yards rushing. They still haven't been able to find their way in the passing game yet. They did a little something in the opener, but the last 3 games, they really haven't had it really going in the passing game. So you look at their schedule. They get Grambling, and then they go to Alcorn, and then they get a bye week, and they go to Southern. For these guys, 5 of their next 6 games is going to tell the absolute story. This is a tough way to go, man. Tough way to go. So you just got to just continue to just keep plugging away. If you're Tremaine Jackson, maybe they have to lean on that run game. We'll see. But that's how it looks. And then also, UAPB, just get a win. But also, if you're looking at these guys have been very disappointing so far. They lost that game. They lost that game against Prairie View. That's the one that they probably should have gotten done, considering now they were outgained in every stretch of the imagination. But they had to lead late in the game, and Prairie View had to drive the length of the field and had to score from the 17-yard line on the last play to beat you. Okay, so they could have won that game. But the way they played against Lamar, it was what Chris Dishman said. It was a disgusting performance. So they had a bye week, so we'll see what comes out, because those guys, they do have some talent. But they got to be able to start playing better, man, and be more consistent. Stop making so many mistakes. And specifically on their special teams, because they got 2 punts blocked for return for touchdowns in the last game. So Texas Southern, they have some opportunities, but we just got to see. So that's how things go. One more time, I'll show you. Here's the schedule next week. SWAC games next week. So Bethune-Cookman, A&M on SWAC TV, Southern Heritage Classic on the Griot, Texas Southern at Valley on SWAC TV, Alabama State at FAMU on HBCU Go, State Fair Classic on SWAC TV, and then the big one down there on the Bluff, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. And then the MEAC schedule, where you got Howard going to Richmond, South Carolina State going to Charleston Southern, North Carolina Central at East Texas A&M, Delaware State looking for their 4th straight win at Sacred Heart. You got the Circle City Classic next week, Morgan State against Miles. Then you got the Norfolk State going to Staten Island, take on Wagner. Then you got Tennessee Tennessee State there in the Big South OVC opener for both teams. And then 2 games on Flow College, CAA Hampton going to take on Elon, and then A&T going to take on Maine. All right. So I've enjoyed everything this week. So Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, I'm going to be joined by my guy, Perry White. He's going to join me, and we're going to have a really, really, really good show next on Wednesday. What we're going to have for you on Wednesday, we're going to show you, we're going to go through everything. We're going to talk about all of the games of week 5, all the ones that you just saw on the previous screens. We're going to give some predictions. We're going to talk about some things. And as always, everybody's going to be able to make all their comments and all their suggestions. And of course, all of the trash talk. So I've enjoyed myself with everybody tonight. Make sure you like the stream. Make sure you tell somebody about this great show, man. We're continuing to keep this thing rolling, doing big things here on the ride. Also, looking forward to being on the coaches' calls tomorrow. Got the MEAC one at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then also the SWAC one at 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll be on both calls, as usual, asking questions. So I'm Wild Wayne Cartwright. I appreciate everybody for all the love, and be well, be great, and continue on and prosper. See you Wednesday.
Thank you for joining us on the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As you exit the ride, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button, and catch up on all of our prior episodes. Until next time, God bless.